Hello, my name is Sarah Stafford, and I am a senior tribal specialist working in the Federal Office of Child Care on our tribal request for information. In this video, I'll provide a summary of the RFI's background and questions related to the Child Care and Development Fund, or CCDF, funding. So, our first topic is the triennial child count and service area. Every 3 years, CCDF tribal lead agencies submit a self certified count of Indian children in their service area, which OCC then uses as the basis for their CCDF funding. The number of children included in the child count is used to determine the amount of CCDF funding a tribal nation receives for 3 fiscal years, and it cannot be changed within that 3 year period after the triennial submission is approved by the Office of Child Care. Tribal lead agencies determine the data sources and collection methods used for their child count, define who qualifies as an Indian child, and defines the boundaries for their CCDF service area. Tribal lead agencies can include children from or descendants of other federally recognized tribes in their count as long as there is no duplication in the number of children counted across overlapping or neighboring tribal CCDF service areas. CCDF also requires the service area to be on or near a reservation, which refers to a geographically close proximity to the borders of a tribe's reservation, except for those tribal nations located in Alaska, California, and Oklahoma. Finally, a tribe must have at least 50 children in their child count in order to receive CCDF funds, unless that tribe participates in a CCDF consortium. The Office of Child Care is interested in hearing feedback on the current requirements and parameters for the child count, including the definitions of Indian child and service area. Are there changes to these requirements that would improve the child count process? Specifically, are there changes that would better support a fair and equitable process for all tribal nations? The next topic has to do with allocation sizes. CCDF categorizes tribal lead agencies as small, medium, and large based on their CCDF funding levels in fiscal year 2016. CCDF requirements vary based on the tribe's size, also known as tiered requirements. While all tribal lead agencies are subject to health and safety requirements and quality spending minimums, tribal lead agencies with small allocations operate under a significantly smaller number of CCDF requirements and complete a shorter CCDF plan. For example, tribes with small allocations are not required to offer direct childcare services and do not have to meet equal access requirements. Tribes with small allocations also can serve families at all income levels. These categories are still based on 2016 funding levels, even though CCDF funding set by Congress has increased substantially since then. OCC is interested in whether the current funding thresholds for tribes with small, medium, and large allocations and the corresponding requirements are still appropriate or whether changes are needed. Should the thresholds be increased? If so, what would the appropriate thresholds be? Do the corresponding CCDF requirements or tiered requirements for each category work well? If not, what changes do you propose? How else could these requirements be improved upon? Next, we're going to discuss the CCDF Tribal Plan. Tribal lead agencies must submit a CCDF plan or application for CCDF funding every 3 years in order to receive funding. OCC provides tribal lead agencies with training and technical assistance to support the development and the submission of the plan. OCC seeks your input on how the design, submission, and approval process of the tribal CCDF plan affects the tribal nation's ability to implement the CCDF program and how it could be improved upon. Are changes to the tribal plan needed to support how the tribal CCDF program is administered or implemented? If so, what kinds of changes do you recommend? Next, we're going to discuss the discretionary base amount. Tribal lead agencies receive funding through two funding streams. discretionary and mandatory funds. Discretionary funding includes a stable base amount of $30,000 per year, in addition to a per child amount based on the number of children in a tribal lead agency's child count that we discussed earlier. The discretionary base amount was last increased in 2017. The base amount is larger for consortia and depends on the number and size of consortium members. The base amount can be used on any allowable CCDF cost and is not subject to any CCDF requirements that exist for the rest of the CCDF discretionary and mandatory funds. The purpose of the base amount is to ensure that all tribal grantees have enough funding to operate a viable CCDF program. For example, the amount is exempt from the 15% administrative costs cap and the 70% direct services requirement. So there is a lot more flexibility in how these funds from the discretionary base amount can be used. OCC would like to know whether the $30,000 discretionary base amount is appropriate for tribal lead agencies. Is there a different base amount you would recommend that would better support the implementation of tribal CCDF programs? Would a change to the base amount expand opportunity and access to child count services in tribal nations and communities, and or enable your program to better operate? If so, please share how. Thank you for listening to our video today. We look forward to your feedback on the Tribal CCDF program. Please visit our RFI resources page for easy access to the full RFI text, as well as to other videos and fact sheets.